Welcome to Quickshots.
Welcome to the Quickshots with your favourite cousins, James and Alex Fitzgerald, where we take your questions and give the best answers that we've got. Alex, I'm going to hit you with this one. In fact, we got this same question or very similar question from two people. So Ruth sent it in and Rick separately. I notice you guys often talk about South Australia, Queensland, other markets, don't often talk about Perth. Can you please include Perth in your next commentary on the market update?
You know, you gotta love someone who asks for what they want. And Ruth and Rick, they want Perth. We want Perth. No, not entirely true. We do talk about it here and there, especially on this podcast. But yes, you're probably right. It doesn't get enough light, if you will. It's still had a pretty good run. To round it out, Perth today, they're sitting at a median house price of about $568,000, and those numbers are at the end of March 2021. And year to date, they've had some pretty good growth. 2% year to date is their growth thus far. So since we clocked over 2021 into 2022, and they've actually had their rents increase as a lot of the capital cities, or I should say all of the capital cities have year on year. So from this time last year to now, 6.7%. which actually puts their rental increase quite a bit over Melbourne. No major surprises there, as we've had a bit of lockdown in that last 12 months. And incredibly, but on trend with the rest of Australia, Perth has got a 0.6% rental vacancy rate. So very hard there to get a rental property, as it is in Brisbane and also Adelaide and parts of Sydney and Melbourne, but with some other opportunities for renters that we talked about in this week's episode. Now, a couple of things that come to mind, and probably why we don't give Perth a lot of credit right now. We are looking at it. We are always looking at that market. We've been in that market. In fact, our clients bought in there from about 2002 to 2006. All of them doubled their money. All of their houses doubled in value. We left that market because it was heavily reliant on mining, as it is today. So for us, that's a little bit of a red flag, because you don't want to be too reliant on one major project or one major employer for the sole purpose that if they shut up shop or they halve in their employment, you're in a little bit of trouble. And then your supply will increase and your demand will diminish. So that's a bit of a risk. And right now in today's market, if you can't get a builder to fix their price with this construction market, you could be up for a lot of risk, a lot of money. Us, in our business, we don't talk about it enough on this podcast, but it's called Custodian. We will not offer or do any property, neither will James and I in our own portfolios, where the builder will not fix their price. Because, you know, how long is a piece of string? They could just pass on costs forever and a day. And that's just too risky. You got to get your finance today, knowing exactly what you're going to get the product you're going to get for that finance. You know, the money tree isn't growing in my backyard, and certainly not yours. Certainly not yours, James. You're building a pool.
No.
You bulldozed the money tree, mate. Anyway, sorry about that. That was a long explanation, but I wanted to give Perth a little bit of light. But hopefully that also sheds a bit of light on why we're not massive on it right now, but eyes always on.
Comprehensive answer. Rick and Ruth should be very happy with that.
Whew, I need to take a deep breath after that one. All right, one over to you. Just one question this week, Kaz. You always stitch me up with the two, but that's okay. I'm here to keep the people happy.
What a stitch up.
Stitch up. They've asked, do you see, this is a good one actually, we get asked this a lot in the last couple of weeks. Do you see any risk to real estate if there is a change in government? I guess Shatanya means on a federal level, given that your source, Winky Winky, is in the pipeline in the next couple of months.
Yes, my source does say May 14, which as we record today, it's the 6th of April. So I guess I'll caveat this by saying two things. Number one, a change in government means nothing. And what I mean by that is there is no definitive relationship between the government that's in power and what house prices are doing. House prices have had good runs in Labor and Liberal governments. The opposite is also true if they've sort of stagnated. So there's no one government that promotes house price growth. A second thing is that unlike the previous election where negative gearing was a hot topic and a few fundamental policies, this time around we've got very similar policies between Labor and Liberal. So I don't expect that even if there was a difference, there would be one because their policies are quite similar at this stage. And I caveat that because we are still, a month or so, slightly over a month out. So it could change, but at this stage, I think very, very little impact, if any, in terms of property prices to come from a change of government. I'll hit you with this one to finish off, your second one, as you like to point out, from Stacey. She wants to know, what is the optimal amount to be saving each week? How much should I be saving effectively?
It's a great question. And, I have had this conversation with you many times, James, because I think first and foremost, it's not about perhaps how much, but what the percentage of your income is and starting that habit somewhere. So you and I have talked about figuring out, write down on the back of an envelope, or you can do it in an Excel spreadsheet and you can have all your formulas. If you don't love maths, you can figure it out, or they can figure it out for you. But I think starting with saving 10% of your income, weekly, monthly, or whatever it is, put that away first. So as soon as your employer pays you, it goes into your bank account, bang, the 10% goes into your savings account. I wanted to share, however, a recent, to me, phenomenon that I'd come across. Maybe phenomenon's pretty out there, but I've just heard of it.
Your preparation and generosity of answers in this segment is something to behold. Keep going. Wow. How do you know if Alex is busy? You ask her. She has been busy.
That is not even true, that little voice snippet.
Carry on,
busy.
though. Yeah, phenomenon. New phenomenon that you've discovered. What is it?
Phenomenon. Yeah, so the FIRE movement, FIRE, F-I-R-E, stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. So I'm like, FIRE. That sounds fire emoji. It sounds pretty cool. This is a hardcore savings tactic, but it is based on being extremely frugal. And whether you are or not, it is very good habits to begin to learn in terms of saving and, I guess, dispersing your money accordingly so that you're not living paycheck to paycheck.
Nick's sweating.
Essentially, the FIRE movement encourages you to start at saving 50% of your income. 50%. So if you get paid $1,000 a week, immediately $500 goes into your savings account. Now, they even sort of break it down further where they say, hey, if you start the FIRE movement, 50% of your savings from 20 years old, and you save 50%, you can retire by about 37, 38 years old. Retire, we'll go into that in another episode, but essentially you've got to invest your savings over this time as well. But if you increase your percentage of savings up to, say, 65, 70%, which somehow people do, which is amazing. I'd love to know their incomes. You can retire by 28 if you start at 20. Now, like I said, this is budgeting at its finest and living a very frugal and I guess minimalistic lifestyle, but it is something you've just got to learn these amazing money habits. And I guess how these there's many sort of like figureheads of the FIRE movement, I suppose. You can take little bits of advice from what they impart.
I'm just gonna hold on. I'm just gonna pull you up here. I've done some numbers. The average the average wage in Australia is $90,000, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say you get, because you got to pay tax. So let's say 70% of that comes into your bank account after tax. Okay. That's $63,000. Okay. If you're saving 50%, it's $31,500. Multiply that by 17 years from age 20 to age 37, and you end up with $535,000. I'm not sure that's enough to retire on. Now, that may be a segment for next week, but I'm not sure that is enough to retire on.
Well, I didn't want to go into the explanation of retirement under the FIRE movement, but retirement is essentially you go into a very flexible work mode where you might pick and choose to do whatever you want or whatever. You're not working for the man, essentially, right?
The man.
But also,
okay. Well, that probably is true. Yeah.
Yes, but also in this time, you are encouraged to make investments that pay dividends of some description. So Some guys buy a property, they sell them when they're their retirement. It's not retirement like play golf every day and, you know, you've got grey hair type of vibe. It's like, it's fire. It's fire. It's financial independence and then retire early. So it's just you're not working for the man. You're taking back control. And yeah, look, budgeting, it's quite restrictive, but
50%,
many people do it.
That'd be a tall ask.
Oh my God. But what an incredible habit, right? What an incredible habit. Anyway, that's enough. That is enough from us. So, Stacey, what should you be saving? You've just got to start somewhere and you have to create that habit and you've got to just continually do it. Hence a habit.
Sounds like it's somewhere between 10 and 50%, depending on where you sit on the FIRE movement scale.
It's somewhere between going hard and going extraordinarily hard to the point where you're eating noodles. You're eating noodles off the floor. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, that pretty much wraps it up.
Right,
that pretty much wraps it up.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Alex, for very generous answers on this Quick Shot episode.
It's hot in here.
If you enjoy the podcast, rate it, recommend it, share it with a friend. We know you do, and we love you for it. Also, we love hearing from you. So please write us an email, send us a message in socials if you've got a question. Thank you for listening. Have a great weekend. Talk soon.
Rate it, recommend it. Live it, love it. Live, laugh, love. Thanks for listening to another episode of The Double Shot with your favourite cousins, Alex and James Fitzgerald. If you've got a burning question or something we absolutely need to talk about on the pod, please write to us. Both of our emails are in the show notes. For little real estate tidbits and a little bit of banter, okay, a lot of banter, you can follow us on the gram. Our handle is thedoubleshot.podcast. That, my friends, is thedoubleshot.podcast. Until next time, think of us when you sit back and sip your next double shot.